Well, it's your Wednesday, and you know what? We're here to brighten it up a little bit, as we try to do. Some great topics on the show. On today's program, trade tensions got you a little nervous? Kevin Shaw joins us to share some smart and surprising Canadian tools, I might add, programs and some platforms in there that can help entrepreneurs keep their businesses strong and self-reliant. Also, grab your handkerchiefs, because pollen counts are higher this spring for some reason. Jennie Bovard guides us on how to survive the worst of allergy season. It's a rough run this year, but guess what? The advice is on the way.
This is Kelly and Company.
Thanks for being with us. I'm Kelly MacDonald in London, Ontario, and we appreciate wherever you are checking out the show, listening in around the world via the podcast or over on YouTube. Nisreen Abdul-Majid joining me on the show as well. Nisreen, yesterday we've had some great guests on the show, and I mentioned the podcast and, of course, YouTube, because people can go back and take a look at stuff. Michael was on with us yesterday, and he was talking about archiving, finding stuff, and we talked a little bit about his disability, how that plays into finding stuff, because so many jobs out there that many of us may want. They may say, oh, you need to drive a car. We don't have a car. We can't drive. That's not our circumstance to be able to do so. But that was touched on. But what I wanted to kind of get into is I love the fact that he is looking at archiving lots of stuff. That's what he does. But one of the things he'd love to archive is more stuff on disability out there, because you just never know. We're very quick to say in the media we don't have a lot of a presence. It's right now one of the hotter things to talk about, so more broadcasters are doing so. But traditionally over the years, unless you're a character in some TV show and you're specifically in there because the storyline revolves around you, we don't get a lot. And he's looking at movers, shakers, people who have done stuff in history, whether we know they have some kind of disability or not, as maybe bringing some attention. And I made the offhanded remark about, gosh, wouldn't that be kind of a really interesting AMI TV biopic or something? And I'm curious how much you're interested in that kind of thing, and overall archival footage, archival content, and if so, what kind?
I gotta tell you, Kelly, when Michael Marlatt came on yesterday and spoke about his profession, it went over my head of how, like, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know this was a thing that people do as a profession. And it's so interesting. It's amazing. I do watch archives here and there, but like more of, I'd say, like, you know, part of history, yeah, but a mix of everything pretty much. But I've never thought of talking about disability, archival disability. Never thought of that. So that was interesting.
I like, and I used to get frustrated because when I was in school, they'd talk about the microfiche years ago, and old newspapers and things like that. If you went to a newspaper, they had taken old papers and put them onto the microfiche, and I thought, oh gosh, it'd be kind of cool. I always liked the idea of just reading the November 3rd morning edition newspaper, if I could do so, just to hear stuff, especially whether it was from Toronto, London, here, just to hear that snapshot of that morning, what people were talking about, what made the news. And that really fascinates me, and I think that's one of my loves for old-time radio. Even if it's a made-up story, they're going to talk about stuff that is kind of happening, just the way TV shows today do. When the pandemic was on, you know, TV shows had to incorporate it.
It was actually a really good idea. I did that in high school, where we had an assignment to bring in every Friday a news article or something on a newspaper, but it has to be printed newspaper. So that was it.
Did it have to be current, or did they want you to go look for stuff that was older, which was always hard to find?
Yeah, they had to be current, but I mean, bringing up old newspapers, I think that would be a fun idea to do with your classmates. Really cool. It's just fun, honestly, and you learn new things, so that's a plus.
Remember,
but Kelly,
it really is. It's a lot of fun to kind of find that stuff and just source it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Today, we're going to be talking about something that everyone does every day, whether they do it loudly or proudly at home or are more discreet about it in public, and that is farting, or what I like to call it as tooting. A farting is a natural bodily function, but why do we fart? And how much is considered normal? And perhaps the more important question is, what is considered excessive, Frances?
So, Nazarene, we have talked about avoiding constipation while traveling and even urinary incontinence. So I thought, why not let loose? And no, I don't mean that in that way, and definitely not on air, but let's let loose and have a little fun today and talk about farting, because, you know, kids will laugh when someone farts, but as we get older, almost all humor is lost, and we're giving people the stink eye if they fired a stink torpedo close to us, particularly if it's a smelly one. So we could go probably on for hours about farting, but luckily for you, we do have a limited time. So we'll use that time to go over some interesting facts about farting. So one unusual fact of the day for you is the scientific study of this area of medicine. Do you know what it's called?
I don't think so. No.
It's called flatology. So
makes
farting,
sense.
or the more proper the more proper word, flatulence, is the result of excess gas being released by our body. Or more technically, flatulence is the expulsion of gas from the intestines via the anus. So what goes in must come out. And we fart primarily because of two reasons. The first is that when we're eating or talking, we can be swallowing air. The second reason is that your gut bacteria produces gases as they break down food. So as for what is considered normal, what would you like to take as a guess for how many farts per day it's considered normal? And I mean, based on your own personal experience or not, you don't need to share. I've seen a few different numbers float around, but no matter what the number.
Published numbers, right?
I'd say like 3.
What did I think there was a published number I saw one time, just those facts, 14 or something like that.
Stop.
Yes. So,
is it true?
Kelly, you're much closer. Yeah, doctors say that it's normal to pass gas around 10 to 12 times per day, with an upper limit of around 20 times. So you might think, well, wait, I don't fart that many times a day. That can't be right. But remember that farting is a reflex that can happen even when you're sleeping. So you wouldn't really know that you're doing that unless your farts are so bad that you're waking yourself up in the middle of the night. So when you combine a high number of farts along with other symptoms like diarrhea, abdominal pain, or weight loss, that would be a sign that you need to go get this checked out by your family doctor.
Wow.
So,
and there are different types of...
And I wonder how many people are comfortable to it. Well, I mean, I think when people get to having other circumstances along with, they may be more comfortable to say something's wrong. I'm getting sick, or I'm having, diarrhea or whatever. They may go, and you hope that you've gone in time and not ignored any other symptom or anything like that. But I bet lots of people hold back because they're just not comfortable.
That's true. So let's talk about the different types of farts. So there are, according to Mayhem, who is a consultant gastroenterologist at Benenden Hospital in the UK. And the first one is probably the one that we all cringe at, either being the culprit or the unsuspecting receiver. And that is those foul-smelling farts. And interestingly, it's usually the silent ones that are the deadly killers, whereas the ones that are often loud are the second type, which is the odorless ones. Then there's the third type, which is excessive farting or bloating-related farts, which may indicate some underlying health problems that we've just talked about, Kelly. And this is the type where someone may feel like they have to go to the bathroom or have stomach cramps, and it could be a sign that you may have irritable bowel syndrome or IBS. It could also be related to being lactose intolerant, where the body's inability to digest particular sugars found in cow's milk results in gut bacteria digesting the sugars on your behalf. And through
I've heard of that with the
process
bacteria issue.
Yes. So through that process of fermentation, that's where they're creating excess intestinal gas, and they're just doing their job. The fourth type is an interesting one, and that is hot farts. Have you ever heard of those?
No. I'm learning new things.
Nisreen's like, I don't talk about this at
No,
all. So
don't even know. No.
Not enough. Not enough, apparently. Yeah.
So Dr. Mayhem has said that if a fart feels hot while you're passing one, it could be the result of spicy foods. Things like chilies and spices have something called capsaicin, which gives it that kick to your gas. And last but not least are normal farts. So if you're farting throughout the day in small amounts, less than 20, then you can know that your body is behaving normally, at least fart-wise.
Okay.
That
All
is
right.
interesting. That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Sure. Certainly. Frances, I don't know if you have anything else to add to this portion, but I a while ago mentioned, people being shy, may not go to a doctor if there's an issue. I'm assuming shyness, concern in that sense, being in a circumstance where you have to hold, that's not a good thing either. Doctors don't encourage that.
No, but let's talk about, before we get to that, let's talk about why some farts are so stinky compared to others. And,
Okay.
If there's ways that we can kind of at least reduce the amount of farts that we're giving off. So
Okay.
if you look at things from a positive perspective, 99% of farts are made up of odorless gas. It's the 1% that you need to be lookout for, whether your own or someone else's. So we kind of discussed this a little bit already, but the smells from farting is really dependent on the foods that we're eating and the gases that are created. So certain foods are more difficult for the body to digest. Either they're high in fiber or made up of certain sugars that are harder for the body to break down. And with that extra time in the gut, they can ferment and therefore have a tendency to lead to more stinky farts. And then a short sample of foods that fall under that category include bran, wheat, dairy products that contain lactose such as cheese and milk, lentils, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and of course the famous beans. Some of those foods like broccoli and asparagus are rich in sulfur, and that is what gives your farts that rotten egg smell. Most of the other farts that are odorless are just made up of oxygen and nitrogen. And I mentioned earlier that one of the causes of farting is swallowing air. When we're chewing gum or drinking, and even swallowing our own saliva. But the question is, how much are you swallowing? So if you're out with friends and everyone is talking and drinking and everyone's kind of laughing, you're going to be unconsciously swallowing air just, due to the excitement. So we've talked before, and I'm just going to bring it back to mindful eating and chewing our food slowly and carefully. And that's one of the ways that we can minimize the air that we swallow. We also know that certain foods can cause us to fart more, so we can try to minimize or reduce those foods, especially if we're out in the company with friends. So what you do and eat at your own home is your own business, but I'm sure your friends would appreciate not having to get a whiff of your farts. So if you have certain food intolerances, such as being lactose intolerant, or you don't do well with spicy foods, then those are options to avoid when you're going out, or, there are those lactose pills that you can take with you. And don't overlook constipation. Not only is that an uncomfortable situation to deal with, but the longer that your food waste sits in your colon, the more time it has to marinate. Or ferment. And this can lead to very, not only stinky, but frequent farts. So if you're regularly constipated, you'll want to have this resolved both for your own comfort and for those around you. Apart from the known foods, every body is designed and works differently. So it might be a good idea to keep track in a food diary of what you're eating and whether you notice an increase in farts or not. And then you can start adjusting that. Also, there are some medications and some laxatives that are known to create excessive farting. So before you write off foods that you're consuming, check the side effects of any of the medications that you may be on.
Okay.
And Kelly, your question about holding it in, I know that this is still a topic that people get embarrassed about, but it is a natural bodily function. So how bad is it to hold it in? We generally don't want to suppress this, but in instances that you have to, some studies have suggested that holding it in might not be great for us, and that it's healthier to let it out, which aligns with Ayurvedic principles. There is this trend called fart walks, which apparently is replacing the other trend of hot girl walks. And that idea is if you eat a meal, you go for a walk. So post-meal activity has been shown to speed stomach emptying and colon transit, and that helps kickstart digestion. So if you're someone who likes to do a walk before dinner, maybe just turn it around and just walk after dinner. Have either of you heard of these kinds of walks before?
Not for that. I've heard of it for diabetics. If you eat, because we all know overall, get the body moving, get things moving through in that sense. So digestive purposes.
Yeah.
So that's what I've heard of.
I've heard of it
Right.
referring to weight loss as well. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So some short-term issues of holding in a fart could possibly be pain, discomfort, bloating, indigestion, and heartburn. So if you need a temporary solution, some geniuses have designed charcoal-lined underwear that allows you to let it rip without worry. You can even pick these up on Amazon. The activated
That's
carbon
amazing.
pack panel absorbs odors and can be reactivated upon washing. So it's environmentally friendly. It's not one-time use. Of course, if you have an ongoing issue with excessive or foul-smelling flatulence, your body is speaking to you and providing direct feedback. So it might be worth a trip to the doctor to rule out any underlying causes. So to summarize, we fart as a result of normal bodily function, but at the same time, it does reflect a state of our health. So it's a good opportunity to kind of really connect with ourselves and think, is this regular or not? You know, so we are so used to doing things that seem normal to us, and we might not know any other difference. So we might not know otherwise. And then you realize that actually it's not normal. So,
Right.
you know, based on some of these facts today, you know, take the opportunity to check with yourself if that seems normal for yourself, and then get it checked out if it's not. And I just want to leave you with another interesting fact, and that is how much farting does an average person do in a day, other than like how many times, how much gas do you think that we produce?
The amount itself?
Yes, the amount.
Oh,
I
don't
wouldn't
know.
have any idea.
I don't know, in the way of like a quart or something like that a day, that kind of thing, or I don't know.
Okay, I can tell you it's about 700 milliliters of gas, which is, to put it equivalent so that you can picture it, it is enough to fill a balloon.
Oh, wow.
Stop. Wow.
In one day. Well,
Wow. This is so interesting, Frances. First of all, look at that invention. You don't even think twice about that. So that's pretty cool. So you can get that off of Amazon?
Yes, you can.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think
love
people
that.
use it for, especially for if you're doing like long flights, you're sitting in a chair. So, you know, with
Wow.
other people, you can't really get up and
Yeah.
excuse yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it must have been
Yeah.
interesting marketing
Someone
those.
probably got
That's
that
for
problem.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty
that-
popular.
for facts, yeah, that's so interesting. Like I never really thought twice about, okay, is it excessive? Is it not? Is it safe to hold it in? Is it not? So thank you so much for all these facts, Frances. This is so helpful.
You're welcome.
Talk to you next month,
That was
Frances.
Yeah. Frances Wong, always giving us the wellness conversations that shed light on the stuff we don't always want to bring up, but here we are. We bring it up. Next month, sinuses.
Okay. Sinuses. I want to talk about this. This is an interesting article that I had sent to me. This is my disabled son got to ride his first real roller coaster at Disney World. And as Disney World is, it was magic. This is the most magical place on earth, and it's taking inclusivity to the next level. Now, this is by Jacqueline Greenberg. So I'm going to read this in the present tense, present tense in her words. This spring break, my 12-year-old disabled son rode one of his first roller coasters. He had a blast. Disney World is one of the only mainstream amusement parks that will let my son go on rides. He is spastic, quadriplegic, cerebral palsy, and is unable to sit independently. The experience at Disney was special for my son, but also special for the rest of the family of 5. Wow. And I think, Nisreen, we may be able to understand some of these things even from our own circumstances, finding activities that we can all enjoy. She says, she goes on to say, is difficult. Splitting up is something that we encounter daily. My son goes to a special school 20 minutes from our home, and his friends live up to an hour away. There are almost no activities he can enjoy at not mobile parks, at our local parks, forgive me, and recreation programs. And I think that that's something so many of us with disabilities know, and we're not in a necessarily, being low vision blind. I've been able to walk, move around, but were there programs that took me into account? And if you do get into something like he is with school, your friends are so far away. It really is kind of disturbing that way, but it becomes normal. Now, he spends a couple of days a week in physical therapy. The family divides and conquer when they're out in public. Many buildings have an accessible entrance further away. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
That it's like that? Wow. Yeah. I've never really thought about it that way, except just needing help to find. And hey, can somebody tell me or point me what door?
Yeah, it's not even only that, but even if they have like elevators to a building, it would be on the opposite side of the building. There's so many times that happens. So, well,
as she mentioned, you got to go hunting for these elevators. Accessible seating in theaters often has room for one companion, so the rest of the family sits further away. Sometimes a building is just completely inaccessible, so they have to just say, well, forget it, we can't do that. But family vacations, she says, there's really one time when they do their best to stay together. So this is where Disney comes up big for them and why the accommodations really matter. In addition to giving the family options to choose from, let them have that choice, the park also made it easier for her son to participate. Many of the attractions allowed them to board in a separate place away from the crowd so they didn't feel rushed. Some rides allowed him to stay in his wheelchair. That's really amazing, with the other 2 of the cars having a bigger seating area, or tie downs for his wheelchair. Other rides did require him to transfer, and the family would carry him. But the attendants slowed the rides down or were able to get his wheelchair right up to the seat for easy access. One ride even had a removable door with a portable seat, which made it easier to get him settled inside the cabin. Aside from the physical accommodations, the staff were well trained to engage with the family. They usually saw them coming down the line, approached them, and guided them to the right area without having to wait for you to ask, hey, where we need to know where to go. They were all very sensitive to this. They were staff members dressed as characters, approached to say hi. They knew he needed a minute to respond regarding her son. They patiently waited and then engaged with the other kids so nobody felt left out. Wow, Nisreen, this is the things those smaller details like that they're just never found anywhere.
Never found anywhere. Honestly, I love Disney World. This reminded me back then when I was younger. I was using a wheelchair, and we went to Disney World for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they were just
me too
amazing.
Once.
And this was back then, where they didn't have these opportunities to kind of use the wheelchair on the ride itself, which is amazing. I didn't know that they did that. But even back then, they were so accommodating. Didn't have to wait long, and it was just, they were so welcoming.
Was that the trip they flew you down and everything? The Make-A-Wish did?
Yeah, it was amazing. Honestly, it was such a fun trip. And as they said, the whole family got to enjoy it because we did different parks of like SeaWorld to Disney World and whatever it is that our family likes all together. But it's the fact that there's always, any trip that we go to, we have to consider these accommodations and how accessible it is and what they offer and what kind of accommodations. And we always struggle with those barriers that people don't consider. But when it comes to Disney World, like, they are ready for anything. They are ready for anything.
It
I love
sounds
that.
like people are always on the guard for it. I know when I did Make-A-Wish years ago in high school, so that tells you how long they've been doing it, how far back.
Yeah.
They took 3 planes of us from London down, and members of the National Guard walked with us, and we didn't have to wait in lines. You could ride different things. And we stayed at the main Disney in Florida, didn't go to Epcot or anything like that, but it was just so great. One of the final things that they thought was a real wonderful touch, their son can only eat pureed meals, and on a past visit to a Disney park, when they enjoyed one of the character meals, one of the head chefs met with them and asked what their son would enjoy, and individually blended food for him. It was just an extra special experience to have my son, as she says, enjoy a meal with the family. Really thought this was impressive.
So lovely. Yeah, it's just so lovely that you don't even have to ask for it, that they're like, they know,
Yes.
and you don't feel like, we're they're asking for too much. No. Or if it's that feeling in your gut that you're like, oh, should I ask this? Should I ask this?
Or explanation, right? Oh, our son's this, isn't that? They recognize that's not our business. We're here to serve. Wow.
They didn't have to explain about their son's disability or anything like that. That's lovely.
And I know Disney has at times come under fire with certain other circumstances. So folks, we can't expect everyone to be perfect every single time. But I love seeing something like this, as much as I like being informed as, hey, here's where maybe they could do better and stuff like that. And I don't think Disney tries to pretend that they can't do better. But I think they probably, after you read something like this, take a lot of pride. So really cool. Remember to check out our podcast from your platform of choice and give us a rating and review. Also check out the content on our YouTube page. We'd always love to hear from you. So maybe subscribe over there and enjoy the Kelly and Company content if you would. As global trade tensions heat up and we brace for certain economic shifts, many business owners out there are trying to keep their businesses sustainable and take care of so many of the things that they have to look at. How do I do it? How do I stay sustainable? Kevin Shaw is here, and we're going to discuss how to deal with some of this stuff, how to stay relevant, sustainable. Kev, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, guys. Great discussion about Disney. Before we jump into that, I have a friend who is blind and found herself alone at Disney World in Florida, and one of the cast members saw her and helped her go from ride to ride, and the Disney staff there are really on point with that.
Wow, that is so great.
Yeah.
It's the natural part. Yeah, and it's just the natural. They just do it right. It's a lot of us say, hey, I went to a school for the blind, for example. I didn't have to ask, didn't have to explain myself. And it sounds like Disney's one of the places where you would almost feel like, hey, I exist here just like everyone else. I enjoy, and they've gone out of their way. So I love it. I love it.
No, it's a real model for customer service.
Yeah.
Kev, where are we going to go here? I want to start with, what is one Canadian resource that more entrepreneurs out there struggling should know about, since we're dealing with tariffs and everything?
Well, I think that one of the ones that is often overlooked is there's a toll-free number called 1-800-O-Canada. I'm not sure if you guys know about that.
Yes.
Anytime that you have a question about anything to do with the government, anything to do with taxes, anything to do with, I don't know, maybe you're planning something, or you want your MP to come and speak at your event or whatever, 1-800-O-Canada will help you navigate the system. They'll get your email. They'll send you links. And this can be a really, really great resource for entrepreneurs who need to, maybe if they don't know something, it's like, hey, I'm looking at doing a business in this industry. Is there any way that you can help me? 1-800-O-Canada, I think, is one of the best ways to get started.
Pretty amazing, right? When we look at gathering all the resources, Kev, how are they like to be that helpful to look into the stuff? Because I mean, again, we go back to so many people, entrepreneurs out there who may be in our disability community, and we're so frightened as to what we do when it comes to what's out there. Having something like this as that resource, making it easy, because most people, a lot of entrepreneurs are on their own getting started, or even with a small team as they get started. How important is that in this case under these kind of economic circumstances and stress?
Well, the networking thing is huge, right? So, it's one thing to, I don't know, start making jewelry in your basement, and you're doing something, and you're what we call a solopreneur. You're basically doing stuff on your own, but you benefit from having a network of advisors. You benefit from having a network of peers, maybe people going through the same struggles as you. Maybe you can go and make partnerships with them. And so there are resources out there. There's Startup Canada, there's Clever Canucks, there's Futurepreneur. And what these programs do is they basically open the door to community, so that you're not struggling on your own. One of the other overlooked ones is your local business improvement area, your chamber of commerce in your city. If you've got maybe a storefront, or something where you're basically trying to put a business together in a way that you're not just doing this by yourself, or maybe it's just you and your family. Are there other resources you can go out there and tap into? Yes, there are a lot of great resources that you can go and tap into that are just homegrown right here in Canada.
Yeah. What about finance?
Especially in the
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. I want to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. But financially, everyone's thinking, okay, I've got to go and, we see these movies and these TV shows where it's, somebody's going down to the States to get money to expand their business. There are a lot of great resources here. There's Business Development Bank of Canada, or BDC, and they provide advisory services and loans, and can really help you with structuring a business. If you're under 39, which I am no longer, there's Futurepreneur, which has a youth-oriented mandate. And so what Futurepreneur does is they work with you to give you a loan to start up your business. You get a loan from BDC to start up your business. And what you can do is basically use that money to, and not just the money, but the advisory services to, get things like a logo done and get your packaging done, or if you need to do some hiring. They're there for that as well. And then another often overlooked one is called Export Development Canada. And so if you are a Canadian business and you're looking to, let's say, export your wares outside of Canada, so maybe you're doing really well here and you're like, okay, I need to go to new markets, maybe in Europe, maybe in the US, maybe overseas in Asia or something, or you're part of a diaspora group that you're involved with. Export Development Canada can help you navigate that and navigate all of the regulations and the tariffs and all of the other things that go along with exporting.
Wow. I love that. It's amazing when you think of the resources, the advisement. I'm curious, before we get into the digital that I cut you off of when we were going back and forth, I want to know about the age thing. 39. Is there, obviously you want to encourage younger people to get their startups. You want to get the youth going. Are there loans so that hopefully the business does well and you can pay back the loans? Do you think they do a lot of that? Is it the encouragement, or is it the theory that, well, if you're younger, you start out, if things go well, you have all that time to pay us back?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think that there's, that they're banking on younger people to have really good ideas for businesses. And, I've met young people through doing my drone business. And I was like, what are you doing? This is amazing. I've never heard of this before.
Right.
Even working at CNIB, just coming across people who are just in their 20s, and it's like, hey, I'm I'm building the next generation of bicycle, or, doing something really crazy with my PhD in math and writing, algorithms for the military. And so Futurepreneur and organizations like that are sort of betting on the youth to say, hey, if you've got a really great idea, I know it's hard for you to start right now when you're, basically just fresh out of school and you don't have money. I think we've all been there. And, like, here's a loan. Like, let's take your idea and give you some structure and give you some advice, some advice and some discipline around your business. And let's see you actually, put something in a store. And it's amazing when you hear these stories of, young people walking into stores going, oh my gosh, like my packaging is it's on the shelf and it's displayed and everyone can see it.
Yeah.
What are some apps that are great for businesses online? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so there's a couple of great homegrown ones that are just made right here in Canada. So we hear about sort of the larger players. If you're maybe you're looking for accounting software, you're going to go to Sage or you're going to go to QuickBooks. But there's one startup here in Toronto called Wave Accounting, and they do all of the things that a QuickBooks does, but it's all homegrown, and they understand the Canadian tax landscape, and can help you with the bookkeeping side. There's another site that I discovered in researching for this segment called Owner, and Owner is spelled with no E, so it's just OWNR. And what they do is help you, instead of having to go to the government website to do an incorporation and like go through all the paperwork there, you can just go right through Owner, and they basically help you start up a business right from their website. And so there's a little quiz that they take you through, and then you just you pay the fee, and you've got all your business documents ready to go, and your business is ready to take off. And then one of the other ones that I love is called Shopify. And so you guys may have seen the name Shopify online, where this business is powered by Shopify. What Shopify is, it's an e-shopping cart in a box. And so it doesn't matter what kind of business you have, you can go and find an online retail shopping cart that matches your business. So if you sell wine, nice. There's one just for selling wine. There's one just for selling books. There's one just for selling auto parts.
Wow.
And so they do all that heavy lifting for you, and all you do is you go and you paint your Shopify custom site with your logo and your copy and your pictures, and they do all the inventory management and the all the transaction stuff on the back end. And they're a Canadian company from Ottawa.
I love that.
That is great. That is really great.
Yeah.
With doing mind your own business and the younger people that you bring on, and in this time, I know, things are what they are. The benefits that some of the businesses over time that you've seen using this toolkit have been tremendous for them, I'm assuming, and thumbs up on them, even the ability to pay back, or the way that information is disseminated to them so that they can put these tools into play.
Yeah, absolutely. Great success breeds great success, and when folks are given the tools that they need to start up a business, they can flourish and do really, really well. But it takes discipline and hard work. It's not easy. To be 22 again and just right out of school, and you've got all the opportunities ahead of you. And
you're not as afraid. It seems, whether that's ignorance of it, the life itself, you just say, hey, I've got a great idea. Everybody will love this.
That's right. And the best way to learn is by doing. And,
yes.
There's a lot of ready, fire, aim in your 20s and 30s when you are just trying stuff. And it's like, well, let's try it. Let's see if it works. And, I had a bit of that growing up as well of, let's try DJing, let's try, event management, let's try, doing all these different things, and you find what sticks. And, you can do that right here in Canada. And, there's lots of great opportunities and lots of great tools out there to help people.
Wow.
I got to tell you, it's more advanced than back then when we were trying to create
especially
small businesses.
Oh my gosh. And now with you can go to ChatGPT and just write me a business plan for a business that does X, and ChatGPT will write your business plan, and all you do is you go and fill it in. We didn't have that. I remember sitting down and writing 50-page business plans. I was like, who's going to read this? But
and the headache,
the tools that, but the tools that are out there now, and the way to go about getting information and connecting with communities, it's so easy. And I think a lot of what holds people back is just that fear, or people going to think my idea is stupid, or people going to steal my idea. You can't approach entrepreneurship with fear. You've got to approach it with a little bit of confidence, and just kind of sticking with it and embracing failing fast and learning and just getting back up and being resilient and doing all that all over again.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Great advice. Really interesting toolkit of stuff. And so many of us not knowing sit there and think, well, how do these people get started? How the heck do they move forward, especially at a troublesome time? Headlines about tariffs and trade tensions just bring on that extra pressure. But today's chat, Kev, has really brought it to our mind that going local, there's a lot of power in that, and leaning into Canadian-made solutions. So really wonderful. Thanks a lot for the talk and all that vital information, pal.
Yes.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Thanks, pal. And Nazreen, I know you have to think about some of that too when it comes to even DJing, right? You go out there, you have to think what needs to be in there, what your ideas are for what you want done and what you want to deliver. So it doesn't matter how small, you're still that entrepreneur doing your business, right?
Yeah, and you're constantly trying to grow because there's so many people out there that are more advanced than ever. And it just keeps surprising me. So it's constantly a thought at the back of my mind as an entrepreneur of how can I expand? How can I become bigger? And then I start comparing, but these are great tools to follow through. I didn't know that there were so many tools that you can use to grow a business. So that's amazing.
I love it. It's just that help that you would otherwise go to somebody who rents themselves out as a consultant or whatever, be paying money you don't even have when, some of these things are there, get you started in these agencies because it's better. The government wants business and they're going to encourage it. So why not give people all the reasons in the world to succeed? We're looking for members of the disability community to join our AMI research panel. Our research panel guides us with every decision that we make here at AMI, including programming, media consumption, and accessibility. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies that they involve themselves in with us, and it's gladly much appreciated. For more information on how to join, go to ami.ca/panel. We're, of course, expecting to hear from you, and we'd love to hear from you. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at your leisure at Kelly & Co. AMI.
Jennie Bovard is a longtime contributor to AMI. You can catch her in the forthcoming AMI TV scripted comedy series Pretty Blind. Today, she's here to catch us up on the Goalball Senior National Championships and then really catch us up on how bad allergy season is this year. Jennie, first, let's talk goalball. What were the results of this year's Senior Goalball National Championships, and what was special about this edition of the event?
Well, Kelly, Nazreen, what a weekend it was. This was my 12th year competing at the Canadian Goalball Nationals, and there are always a lot of things every time we go back that make the event special. Every time, it's obviously a huge community of people coming together to play a sport that we love, and that in itself is very special. But there's also all of the folks, the organizers, the volunteers, the referees, all of the people and all of those human hours that go into making it such a successful event. I've got to give them props as well. There were 7 men's teams and 6 women's teams this year. 6 is actually a pretty big number for us on the women's side. It's really awesome to see see that growth in participation. I remember years when we had only 4 women's teams competing, and recently it's been sort of leveled off at 5. So it's awesome to see the growth there. You guys know I can't talk about highlights without talking about the food. Okay.
Yes.
The food.
We're good with that.
Food.
Yep.
I know. Everybody loves food, and it was top tier. It was like a step up, certainly, than what we're used to. They did such an awesome job providing nutritious meals and really tasty stuff. I'm not going to knock, the subs, the sandwiches, the pizza that we normally see at these events. But when you get spaghetti and meatballs and chicken fingers and salad and just really nice, well-rounded meals, that was a highlight for me. But also, as someone who has nutritional requirements, I'm dairy-free, I'm beef-free, they catered so well to us and really made that stuff tasty. So shout out to the school cafeteria staff and Natalie. I'm gonna stand her out all on her own. They did such a good job. Now, on a more personal level, I got traded, guys.
Oh,
Really?
Wow.
I got loaned out. I left my Nova Scotia team along with another Nova Scotia provincial team member, Alexis Nickerson. We left our now team of 6, which is huge, which is awesome.
Right. Yep.
But the 2 of us, we were able to go over to Team BC. We joined 2 ladies from there, from British Columbia, and we made up that 6th team in the tournament. And so our title, you guys, was British Columbia, Nova Scotia. And I don't know what you know about goalball, but those poor referees, we challenged them with our game, with our team name, because they have to repeat it so many times throughout the gameplay. So imagine BC, Nova Scotia. It was quite the mouthful. But on a more serious note, I got to play alongside repeat Paralympian Miriam Salahazadeh. She is like the Miriam. I kept calling her all weekend. She's been to the Paralympics to represent in goalball, and also played alongside longtime BC team member Melody Shee. So the tournaments are always a huge learning experience. Usually I compete against these world-class athletes. So to be alongside them was a special treat. And we learned a lot about perseverance as a team, communication as a team, with our temporary team members, gelling with folks that you had never played goalball before. It was a truly unique challenge, and I even embraced that. So we had such a good time, and I joke with them that we're friends for life now. They're never going to get rid of me, and I would love to play with them again. So why don't we get on to the actual standings?
But how does that work out, though, as you go into the standings, when it comes to the position of when Nova Scotia says, okay, she was only alone. Those 2 were only alone. Alexa and Jen, they were only alone. Can we get them back? Because, obviously you're playing at nationals. That's pretty, pretty prestigious as it is. And I know there's always the looking over eyes as to who ends up in time being invited out to try to qualify for the national team. Is that how all that works? What's next that way for and jump into those results, if you would.
Well, you're right, Kelly. Like, it is a pretty competitive. It's a competitive level here because it is nationals, and many of the folks competing are on the Canadian national goalball team or on the development team, and so a lot of the people, a lot of those folks are well represented at this tournament. And you're right that the Canadian Blind Sports Association, the high performance directors, they are looking to those folks' performance, those athletes' performance here at nationals. I'm not in that mix. I've not put myself in that running. I like to play at the provincial level and show up and have a great time at nationals. But you're right that it is important in selecting who moves on to go, let's say, represent Canada coming up in Brazil and Sao Paulo over the summer is the next big tournament coming up. So this does contribute to that. And folks like Miriam and Alexis and many other people from Nova Scotia, they as individuals are being assessed. And so when it comes down to the who represents which province at nationals, we've had people join us from other provinces, but this is the first time that I've gone and joined another team, and we're all sort of standing out on our own for those athletes who are being considered for the national team.
What's that like, that whole experience?
It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
Going from, you go from competing with the same group of ladies, the same group of athletes at competition throughout the year. We were in Montreal together. We competed alongside one another as Nova Scotia, and you practice every week with the same people. There's the getting to know, how do the people on your new team, how do they like to communicate? How do they like to pass the ball? And so you have to get to know each other as you go. You can meet ahead of time and talk strategy and talk preference as to which position you like to play. I'm always at center or right wing. You put me in left wing, it's like my first day. But you talk about certain things ahead of time, but you don't know till you're there, and things come up like, how often does Miriam want to throw the ball? When does Miriam need a rest as a strong offensive player? So that gelling and communicating, we fumbled a lot of times. There were some embarrassing moments, but that's sort of how you learn and figure it out as you go. And then, the results will sort of speak for themselves as we get into the standings. I'm not going to give it away just yet, but I'd love to share who came first, second, and third on both the men and women's side. And let me start with the gold first medal place on the women's side. Ontario A is always the team to beat, and that team is made up of all Canadian national goalball players. They're all Paralympians, and they're always the team to beat. I believe this is their 12th year in a row, at least, taking the first place spot. So Ontario A came first for the women, and Alberta snagged the top spot for the men. In silver, second place, Alberta won on the women's side, and the Nova Scotia A team on the men's side, they snagged silver. That was such a close game, that men's gold medal match. It was tied so often throughout the game. We thought it might go to shootout at some point, but it didn't. It was a well fought game. And finally, in third place, in the bronze position, our combined BC, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, Nova Scotia mouthful. We actually snagged the bronze medal. We beat Quebec, and it was a really nice surprise. Like I said, I really didn't know what to expect going and competing with a new team, being loaned out or traded. And in the third place men's spot was the British Columbia men.
Wow.
Oh, amazing.
That's great.
That's
nice to see
incredible.
so many, and nice to see Alberta doing so well. And now when Jennie goes back to Nova Scotia, Jennie who? That'll be awesome. Congratulations. That is amazing.
Thanks so
Jennie,
much.
I love it. I've always been that huge fan and very proud of goalball. And there's so much. It's what a sport. Wow. Jennie, let's move to terrible allergy seasons. What's going on? Why should seasonally allergy sufferers be on the alert this spring?
Well, as we all know, pollen season, allergy season is among us. And thanks to climate change, pollen counts are higher than they have ever been in North America. When I heard about this story, it really grabbed my attention, because this is not good news for people like me. I'm a lifelong seasonal allergy sufferer, the tree pollen, the pollen, and I'm someone that lives with asthma. I'm usually pretty stubborn, though. I don't usually let it affect me. I still go out and do my stuff. My nose is running, my eyes are watering, but I just suck it up and do it anyway. But it's getting more serious. People who have never had allergy symptoms before are reporting experiencing symptoms. And it's a cause for concern. And what's happening is that, of course, plants need carbon dioxide to photosynthesize. So when we increase the heat and pollution in our air, that means pollen creation is just off the charts. It just exponentially it's creating more and more pollen than ever, and stronger allergens. And something that really piqued my interest was that the more extreme weather we're having, all of these storms, the wind gets going, the lightning gets going, what happens is it whips up those pollen grains into even smaller pieces, making it easier for us to breathe them in. And that's kind of, I don't mean to freak anyone out, but that really kind of freaks me out and makes me think about my choices and when I go outside and what I do to protect myself.
Like a pollen tornado.
You can't wait to get outside and enjoy the summer, and then this hits. And as you said, a lot of people that never had allergy, whatchamacallit,
Those symptoms, those fun symptoms.
symptoms
the
is
runny
the word that
nose.
I'm looking for. Yes, the symptoms. Now my whole family has symptoms, and it's like, where did this come from? But
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, like this is wild. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Even my dog has
Yeah.
allergies. The poor guy gets so itchy.
Aw.
And, the experts are saying we should take our allergies seriously, listen to our bodies, minimize our exposure, even consider maybe wearing face masks, using air purifiers, and taking notice of in our weather apps, there's often a pollen forecast that
There
we can
is,
refer
yes.
to and make good decisions there.
Wow. And you say good decisions, but knowing this is just going to build and build. Wow, Jenny. Scary.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing this up, Jenny.
I want to say my pleasure, but it's just sort of a sharing information aim here. I don't want. I thought, oh wow, that really affects me and my family, and I can only imagine it would affect lots of other people. But air
Yeah.
purifiers, then do what you can to minimize exposure. And for me, that means maybe I have to do my runs around my neighborhood and not on the nice trail on certain days when I look at that pollen forecast.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Changes everything.
Awesome. That was Jennie Bovard. She joins us for catch-ups every month on the show. Thank you for having us.
Email us, folks, at kellyco@ami.ca, and you can call us at 1-866-509-4545. On our next program, what exists out there for off-grid power and communication solutions to keep you connected and safe out there? Lawrence Gunther is the director of the new Bluefish Canada Exploration Center and Research Center, and knows a thing or two about powering up technology and communicating off-grid. We'll communicate with him on the program tomorrow. Take care, and Fedora's off to you.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.